All right, now you've got money. Now the question, I think, just becomes, what are you really going to try and do with it?
Yeah, and I think that's the fascinating part about what the next couple weeks are about. Will they spend like drunken sailors, or will they just kind of hide and hang back? Because we know they have the resources. Mm-hmm. That's the different thing about this. This isn't like as if they're choosing one or the other based off of, well, we have to be stingy here. Like a baseball team, for instance, being like, well, I can't afford an outfielder and a shortstop. No, the cool thing about the Browns is that they have the money. They spend more money than anybody in the NFL for the previous 5 years. They can do whatever they want to. It's just whenever Andrew Berry feels like he's ready to make some sort of swing, and it doesn't feel like he's ready for that right now.
Yeah, I don't honestly know what to expect. I want them to be aggressive. I want them to act like a real NFL team with cap space, with a locker room full of guys. Like, let's not forget, like, you kept Myles Garrett here by telling him you weren't going to rebuild, and boy, does this thing smell like a rebuild. So there's an element of this of like, you know, when I understand I've had a complicated situation with Myles because of the way he went about his trade request, but like, there's an element of this if you kind of half-ass it. Or I mentioned this earlier, like Braxton Jones as one of your offensive linemen, I get it. But if you sign 4 guys that fit that criteria, and in a year from now, you're going to have to replace another 4 offensive linemen, you can't tell anyone you really tried this offseason.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, listen, we'll see what they do in the next couple weeks, and then we can go from there. But as of right now, I just don't get the sense that they're going to be going any sort of big game hunting. I think they're going to try to fill in some of the holes. You have to. They have to have people actually play at the position. But I'm not expecting anything awesome out of this.
So Nathan Segura was on with the Morning Boys and Daryl today, and kind of put out his expectations for the Browns in free agency.
Offensively, that's where I think you've got to get a little bit more active. And I think that, you know, you're talking about guys on the offensive line, especially the interior of the offensive line. I could see them be active there. A second tight end, probably more so in the blocking. You know, Charlie Kohler, who was with Baltimore, and Todd and Travis a year ago, would make a lot of sense there to kind of be that complement to Harold Fannin, who now emerges as your number 1 tight end, and certainly as, you know, a real pass-catching threat, your leading receiver a year ago. I think if they find the right free agent wide receiver at the right price, that's somebody they can look at. A guy I like is Tyquan Thornton. That's kind of where I would be looking at it for the Browns over the next couple of days in that free agent market. I don't think they're going to be going big on day one with huge names. I think probably the biggest guy they could get or keep is Devin Bush.
So when it comes to the offense, I actually do have a pretty clear distinction of what I expect for them, and I expect at least 2 definitive starting offensive linemen in free agency. The position, I think, is going to matter on who's out there and who actually wants to come in. I probably would put another 2 bodies, meaning like guys who are going to compete for starting jobs, also in that vein. So whether it's guys who either didn't work out, like a Braxton Jones, like a Sean Ryan in Green Bay. Okay. So, but I need 2 definitive starters. 2 guys that you can look at and go, even with Tristan Howard, we can't say whether he'll be your right tackle, right guard, or left guard. But that's going to be one of your 5, what did I say?
You said Tristan Titus.
Him too. But
we're still learning names here, guys. We're still learning. It's new.
I'll say your name right when you earn it. No, I'm kidding. Just mop the floor
That's
with
right.
me.
You keep calling him Mick Robinson.
That's true. Yep, Mike Robinson's a great board op, I think, and supreme leader. But 2 definitive starters on the offensive line and likely 2 lesser pieces. I do need a strong number 2 tight end. And Kohler makes a lot of sense given that there's the Baltimore familiarity and given the fact that I think, you know, he was kind of situated as tight end 3, so it's kind of a promotion for him. Or
even shooting higher, like an Isaiah Likely type or something like that.
Yeah, the interesting thing will be, like, the markets for Likely supposed to be all over the place. I don't think it's likely Isaiah comes here. But I could see if people look at him and are worried about his production last year, that's certainly an interesting name. And then beyond that, to me, it's okay, what's out there and what comes available.
Yeah, I guess I feel like it's different because I know they could deploy a lot of resources. That sounded very analytical and very much like how they speak. But I know they could, and that's the sad part about this. It's not as if I feel like there's some sort of, restraint that the organization has. They could do a lot of things, and freeing up all this money obviously gives them way more flexibility, but it's there. It's open for them. It's just whether or not they want to start taking swings. I don't know what Andrew Berry's waiting on. He didn't do it last offseason. If he doesn't do it this offseason, Is he just waiting for one big offseason? Because you might not get it if you keep waiting around.
Yeah, and I think this idea of, because I do think there are some people who don't want them to go to kind of pursue big fish, because it's like, well, don't make yourself any better than you have to be. Now, this offense is a 2-year build at the minimum. It's going to you need to get to the bare bedrocks of what your offensive line is going to be, and then next year's hopefully where you can put the accent on it with either a great quarterback and a great this, that, or the other, right? I do think it's interesting that, we had previously talked about Tyler Linderbaum, and we've had people on here like Zach Jackson, who was definitive that was not going to happen. Albert Breer, in his mailbag today, said the Browns are one of 5 teams expected to be right in the fight for Tyler Linderbaum. He also mentions the Lions, the Bears, the Chargers, and the Ravens.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's a center, and it's tough to sell that as a sexy thing. I do think it's a name because it's been in the division that would get a lot of interest and a lot of maybe hopes up for the Browns fans if you see them sign Tyler Linderbaum on Monday.
Well, I kind of feel like it's the perfect type of signing in many ways, not only because obviously he's great at what he does, but the idea that it would help out whatever quarterback is there. And then centers do matter, and they matter in the equation, but he's not going to change the math completely on whether or not you're a 6-win team to then being a 9-win team.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would just be over the moon. I think he's a really, really good football player, and I think he is covered up. They have not drafted well in that offensive line. Fa'alele might end up being your right guard, by the way, so hopefully not. But
and they were not a particularly good offensive line last year.
But for him to have basically 3 of the 4 spots around him of just not good enough players for what we're accustomed to, for him to still be a roughly 80 grade PFF, I think it was the 4th best center grade in the NFL last year, tells you how damn good he is and how much he can actually help you.
Yeah, he's a massive upgrade, but the cool thing about it is that he's an upgrade in the way that you obviously the team becomes better across the board, but your win-loss projections aren't going to change a drastic amount. And it's so if they're worried about that, it is the type of move you can make.
Well, but to me, there's a really interesting philosophical conversation about building this offensive line and paying Tyler Linderbaum, top of the center, maybe $25 million a year, versus where you have Luke Whippler, who I don't know what anybody thinks about him. I thought he was fine last year, but maybe not a starter. Mm-hmm. Where you already have a body that you could throw into a competition, versus like a Rasheed Walker, who is a nice player, but maybe not as good as Tyler Linderbaum, but you really don't have anybody that can play left tackle.
Yeah, it's just interesting because the way that the analytical world looks at this stuff right now, they look at positions like center, as important as they are, and these are the times to get them. And free agency are the times to go after those guys. And then you want to get the skill position players and some of the higher paid positions. You want to get those in the draft. And so this would fit the type of mold that it currently exists in the NFL.
Now, I don't expect both of them. But give me one of them.
No, I don't expect Linderbaum, if we're being honest. But it's nice that we got mentioned.
I actually think the Walker thing might be more likely.
That one feels that one's on the table.
But if you could get me Walker and an Elijah Vera Tucker, I know he didn't play last year, but that would be a kind of a bounce back guy that I think, one of the guys you sign or bring in, Howard is a nice offensive lineman. He's fine. He's not great. He is, I would say, league average, right?
Versatility is the best thing he brings to the table, and he still wants to be a tackle for some reason, but yeah, he's fine.
Walker, I think, is better than fine. I think he's probably above average, but he's not great. It would be nice if one of the 3 guys, or one of the 2 starters you sign, or one of the 3 main guys that are maybe penciled into a spot are upper echelon level talent, because that would be what Elijah Vera Tucker brings.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have all sorts of different options for just kind of fill out the line, but Linderbaum isn't that. Linderbaum's not filling out the line. That's a big splash move. Now, do you think he'd come here just for money and money purposes alone?
And Monken. I think Monken and
the relationship with Monken.
Yeah, I mean I don't know that's. I think money matters in this conversation. I think a center being able to reset the market is something that very rarely happens. And I would be surprised if that wasn't the thing driving Tyler Linderbaum.
Because the Bears seem like they're ready to just throw in a whole bunch of cash in his direction. So I'm fascinated to find out how that actually works. But I keep thinking about the comments they just kept making over and over again between him and Barry about how money's going to basically just get them anything they want. And I want to see that in action.